A high school girl slams her bedroom door, yelling that she's going to be late, leaving her favorite video game abandoned on the desk. She never makes it to school. A sudden, brutal traffic accident ends her life in an instant, but death is not the end. It is merely the beginning of her nightmare. The moment her head strikes the ground, a past life crashes into her mind. She is 8-year-old Katarina Clays, the Duke's spoiled daughter, who just tripped and split her forehead open in front of the beautiful third Prince Gerald. Servants scream for a doctor. The prince asks if she is all right, but the bleeding wound is not the real disaster. Katarina staggers in a daze, her mind fracturing with a single terrifying realization: who am I? The answer hits her with horrifying clarity. In her past life, she was a 17-year-old high school girl who just died. The revelation is so absurd she collapses while servants outside scream her name in a blind panic. Upon returning to the mansion, a frantic servant delivers urgent news. Prince Gerald has come to visit. The beautiful little prince appears at her bedside, soft and deeply worried, asking how she is feeling. Katarina's childhood crush dies instantly. Gerald is still beautiful as an angel, but with 17 years of past life memories, he is just an impossibly cute little boy. She grins at him like a big sister, entirely devoid of romantic feelings. Gerald bows at her bedside, apologizing profusely for injuring her face. Katarina immediately tells him to raise his head, then flips the blame onto herself with shocking politeness. She caused everyone grief, so she must be the one to apologize. Gerald insists he was responsible, but Katarina's sudden mature grace leaves him frozen in absolute shock. Katarina panics for a fraction of a second. She is supposed to be a haughty 8-year-old aristocrat, not a polite commoner burdened with a past life. Gerald still cannot stop blaming himself, insisting that if he had been more careful, he never would have run into her. Then he drops the worst possible line: her forehead might scar, and he is truly sorry. Katarina's brain screams in protest, but she forces out a bright, noble girl smile. She taps the bandage and declares it is merely a scratch. Katarina swishes her bangs over the bandage, flashing a bright grin as if the forehead wound is nothing she cannot hide. Gerald remains horrified. He warns her that even if she does not care, aristocratic society will, and a scar like that could permanently destroy her marriage prospects. Katarina absorbs the warning with a quiet, "I see. He is right. This world operates like medieval Europe, where noble girls are judged brutally on their appearance." Before her memories returned, that reality would have crushed her. Now the whole obsession just feels like a massive pain in the rear. Katarina's mind bails on aristocratic society entirely, drifting straight back to her old life of potato chips, anime, and video games. Someone calls, "Miss Katarina?" and she jolts back with a blank, "Ah, yes?" Gerald asks if the arrangement is all right with her. Katarina, who absolutely did not hear a single word, forces a bright smile and chirps, "Why, yes. Understood." Gerald accepts it and says he will visit to greet her again when she is better. The door shuts, and only then does Katarina catch the weird part. Greet? What is that all about? She shrugs it off, deciding to ask her maid, Anne, later. Exhausted, Katarina yawns and stretches in bed, ready to sleep more. Suddenly, Anne grabs her and shouts, "Congratulations!" Katarina's sleepy confusion gets crushed under Anne's sparkling excitement. Gerald is not just a handsome little prince, he is the third prince, and the reigning king chooses his own successor. That means Gerald has a real shot at becoming king, especially with his supposedly excellent personality. Anne grabs Katarina in bed and screams congratulations on her engagement. As Gerald's fiancée, Katarina might actually become the future queen. Katarina's smile goes dead still. She has to ask Anne to repeat that last part very carefully. Anne, still glowing with excitement, drops the ultimate truth. Katarina is now officially engaged to Prince Gerald. The words hit Katarina like a lightning strike. She screams, "What did you say?" and blasts straight out the window in a blind panic. Anne shrieks for Lady Katarina, while her younger stepbrother Keith can only stare in disbelief and weakly call out, Katarina?" Katarina tries to dodge the engagement talk by hiding behind, "I'm still not feeling well," but Anne is already stepping in with that dangerous word. Inside, Katarina is completely exhausted by the idea. Gerald is taking responsibility for a tiny scratch by making her his fiancée, and because everyone else looks so happy about it, she cannot exactly say no. She flops back in bed with a cold compress on her forehead, groaning at the absurdity. Gerald is only 8. That is way too young to be engaged, though in this world it might be normal. The thought makes it worse. She already hates preparing for noble society, and now there's a chance she will have to become queen. Then Katarina stares at her own reflection. With her upward slanting eyes and sharper, intimidating beauty, a terrifying truth lands. She looks Katarina's memory snaps back to the anime game she bought right before dying, the one she never finished. She remembers Gerald's route. The childhood fiancé villainess was a nuisance, but she cleared it somehow, even though Prince Gerald was sadistic and cunning. Then the realization hits hard. Prince Gerald, engaged since childhood, her mind races back to the villainess's name, and it lands like a curse. Katarina Clays, the rival villainess and Prince Gerald's childhood fiancée, that is her. Katarina shoots upright, clutching the mirror as the name from Fortune Lovers slams into her. Katarina Clays, Lady of the Clays House, Prince Gerald's childhood fiancé, and the rival villainess. She stares at her own reflection and shivers, because that sharp, intimidating face really is the face of a villainess. The truth bursts out of her in sheer horror. I am the villainess, but her mind cannot finish the thought. But that's... Katarina explodes with a horrified scream. You've got to be kidding me! Outside her room, the maids freeze in alarm, whispering that maybe the doctor should take another look at her. Katarina tries to claw her way out of the panic. No, just because the names match does not mean this is definitely that world. She grabs a notebook and writes the heading, About Fortune Lover, What I Remember. Her hand shakes as she forces herself to think logically. It does not prove anything yet. She cannot just assume this is the same world as that Otomi game, but the name still hangs there like a curse as she gulps and writes it down. Fortune Lover. Fortune Lover is a straightforward Otomi game about love, set in a sword and magic country with a medieval European feel. Its story starts at a magic academy, where students learn to properly use magic once they turn 15. Most people with magic come from noble families, so a commoner born with magical aptitude is rare enough to sound outrageous. Katarina scratches her head as she forces the rules into order. Magic comes in water, fire, earth, wind, and light. Earth is the most common, followed by wind, water, and fire. Light is the rarest and the strongest. The game's heroine is exactly that impossible girl, a commoner with light magic. The night before she died, Katarina had finally managed to capture the heart of the first Fortune Lover target, third Prince Gerald Stewart. Gerald is a fairy tale prince on the surface, beautiful, brilliant, and able to do anything. But underneath, he is a schemer with a twisted personality, bored with his perfect everyday life. His magic is fire, and he is only the first of 4 potential lovers. Then comes the second target, Alan Stewart, Gerald's younger twin brother and the 4th prince. Alan has water magic and a wild look, but his charm is tangled with deep insecurity. Growing up under Gerald's genius shadow twisted him too, leaving him spoiled, selfish, and desperate not to be seen as lesser. Katarina's memory of Fortune Lover drags up Nicole Ascart, the wind target, the Prime Minister's son, and Gerald and Alan's childhood friend. He is the most straightforward of the 4, impudent, quiet, and almost the safe option, until the word root makes him dangerous too. Then Keith Clays hits her mind. He is the Earth target, adopted from a branch family because of his huge magical power. Treated coldly by his stepmother and stepsister, he grows into a playboy chasing the affection he never got. The trap keeps getting worse. Gerald, Alan, Keith, and Nicole all have romance routes, and Katarina's memory even hints at a reverse harem route too. Katarina pins the name to the nightmare. She is not just someone similar. She is Katarina Clays, the classic rival villainess from Fortune Lover. She digs through her memory, terrified of what happens to that girl in the game. In Gerald's route, Katarina's doom is brutal either way. If she harasses the heroine, she loses her status, gets branded a criminal, and is exiled from the country, while the heroine and Gerald marry happily. But the bad end is worse. Jealousy drives Katarina to attack the heroine with a knife, and Gerald strikes her down. Even though he does it to protect the heroine, Katarina dies. After that, Gerald breaks with the heroine and leaves the country, wandering away in grief. Katarina's engagement is not just awkward, it is the starting line of Katarina freezes over her notes, then realizes the nightmare is worse than she thought. Even the reverse harem route and Keith's route end with her dead or exiled. Her own diagram points to one brutal conclusion. Katarina Clays has no happy ending. In the happy ending, she gets exiled. In the bad ending, she dies. The horror slams into her. Every route she remembers is just a different flavor of game over. No joy, no rescue, no clean escape, only bad endings for Katarina Clays. Shaking at her desk, she forces herself to focus. If she really is inside Fortune Lover, then she has to confirm it before the doom flags swallow her whole. Katarina's desperate research destroys her last hope. No way, she thinks, flipping through books on magic, noble society, and the royal family. But the more she checks, the more impossible it becomes to deny. The facts line up perfectly. Gerald's twin brother Alan exists. Her stepbrother Keith's former family exists. The Prime Minister's name is Ascart. The character's special magic attributes match, and even her appearance fits the villainess. Her hand shakes as the conclusion locks in. This really is the world of Fortune Lover. Katarina clutches her notes in bed, pale with fear but burning with defiance. She refuses to sit quietly and accept a horrible ending. Katarina's fear hardens into a vow. She died young in her first life, and this time she wants a long one, old age, laziness, and a cat on her lap. There is only one way to get there. She has to come up with a plan and somehow avoid the disastrous ending waiting for Katarina Clays. She slams a gavel down with a brutal bang and turns her panic into Katarina TV Live. In emergency meeting mode, she calls the first session to brainstorm every possible way around her horrible endings. Katarina's emergency meeting opens with a desperate call for plans, and tiny Katarina immediately raises her hand. She calls on herself as Miss Katarina Clays and drops the obvious first move, end the engagement with Gerald. Without it, the Gerald route should not have a destructive ending, but the idea collapses almost instantly. Gerald himself proposed the engagement, and Katarina's family is already thrilled about it, making cancellation nearly impossible. She tries another escape route: do not enter the academy at all. If she stays away, she will not meet the protagonist or get tangled in the game's routes. Then reality crushes that plan too. The academy is mandatory for anyone with magical powers, and Katarina's magic manifested when she was 5. Katarina slams the Skip Academy plan into the ground. No matter how spoiled a daughter she is, avoiding the academy is impossible. Damn it, all because of this stupid earth magic. She tries to salvage the situation. If she never bullies the protagonist, everything should be fine. Exactly, but then the trap snaps shut again. In the game, her whole clique bullied the heroine. Even if Katarina keeps her hands clean, everyone could still treat her as the ringleader, and worse, her fiancé is Gerald, the crafty prince. If she becomes an eyesore to him, he could easily pin some horrible scheme on her to keep her away from the protagonist. No way! Then what should they do? Katarina's emergency council dissolves into frantic chatter. Exile with no money means starvation, and nobody wants to die. One Katarina finally forces everyone to calm down, then leans in with sudden confidence. She has an idea. If Gerald is the one who might eventually strike her down, then the answer is obvious: train her sword skills. The tiny council erupts in agreement, and Katarina's grin sparkles with terrible logic. If she can use those skills when the time comes, at least she will not be finished off too quickly. Katarina's survival plan takes a sharp turn. If exile is coming, they will not just train their bodies, they will turn magic into a lifeline. Even if they are kicked out with no money and no noble name, magic users should be able to find work, especially in countries where magic is rare. Then the ugly problem lands. Katarina only has wimpy earth magic, and the game's Katarina ignored it completely while obsessing over Gerald and getting awful grades. Katarina does not let that kill the plan. If the old Katarina wasted her chance, then this Katarina will start from now. She will do her best, train properly, and make sure she can actually use magic before the doom flags catch up. Katarina's emergency council erupts into cheers. Sword skills, magical powers, survival. She bangs the gavel again and turns it into a unanimous decision. Katarina TV Live will sharpen both body and magic. The plan starts moving fast. Katarina finds a swordsmanship teacher, practice is going well, and she is thrilled. But the next threat is still waiting. Now she has to do something about her weak earth magic before it becomes another doom flag. Katarina cracks open a magic manual and latches on to one key rule. To grow stronger, she has to interact with the source of her magic. But her earth magic still looks pathetic. Earth Bump only raises the ground 2 or 3 centimeters. That was all the game's Katarina could do too, make the protagonist trip over and over. Katarina clenches her fist, furious. With a spell that wimpy, she will never live past her disastrous ending. She needs to get stronger somehow, but interacting with the source is still too vague. Unless earth magic means she has to interact with the ground itself, she presses her hand into the soil, repeating the idea, and then suddenly shouts, "Ah, right!" Katarina is smashing the earth so hard that her maid panics and asks what she is doing. Katarina proudly declares she is plowing a field to improve her magic, because the book said she has to interact with the source of her ability, and for earth magic, that means dirt. Her logic clicks into place with terrifying confidence. Interacting with dirt means plowing, so she throws herself into the work. She thanks her grandmother from her past life for teaching her that plowing is how people interact with the earth. The joke turns sharp when Katarina remembers the deadline. 7 years until the academy. If she is exiled, she will need magic strong enough to earn money and keep herself alive. Katarina has fully committed to her earth magic training. She is out in the field, swinging a hoe with both hands and smashing the soil like her life depends on it. The maid watches, horrified, thinking that interacting with the magic source probably was not supposed to turn into plowing a field. Something feels fundamentally wrong here. Katarina tries to brush her off, but the maid panics and announces that Lord Gerald has come to the mansion. Katarina freezes. Gerald? Why now? The reason lands like another doom flag. Gerald came to properly greet her and make their engagement official, so she has to hurry back and prepare. Katarina's confidence cracks into a tiny, terrified, Huh? The maid steps toward her with a sweet smile and a terrifying aura. My? Gerald arrives at the field with a polished smile and a crowd behind him, saying he heard Katarina was training her magic and came to see how she was doing. His angelic grin hits differently now. Old Katarina would have swooned, but now she sees the scheming, sadistic prince underneath and cannot help comparing him to a devil. Katarina snaps into noble lady mode, smiling brightly as she apologizes for making him come all the way out there. Inside, she knows she has to get serious. Out loud, she explains that she is improving her magic by interacting with the source, the earth, while holding her hoe like this is completely normal. Katarina explains with total confidence that plowing a field is the best way to interact with the earth. So Gerald realizes she is trying to train her earth magic. Gerald only stares, murmurs, plowing a field, and starts trembling. Katarina instantly spirals. He is furious, and he will exile her before she even enters the academy. Then his face lights up like sunrise. He calls it innovative training, completely impressed by her ridiculous logic, and reaches for her with that dazzling princely smile. Katarina nearly collapses with relief. Gerald is not angry at all. Gerald drops to one knee right there in the field, formal as a prince in a ballroom, and announces that he is here to officially greet her about their engagement. He apologizes for the terrible setting, sparkles like he is made of sunlight, and asks Katarina to become his fiancée. Dirt smudge Katarina freezes, her brain completely short-circuiting. Huh? Ah? Yes? Gerald takes her work-roughened hand and kisses her knuckles with princely elegance, sealing the engagement while Katarina stands there stunned, a hoe still clutched in her other hand. Katarina's mind screams one clean thought, shit. She got swept up in the moment and said yes, and now there is no way to take it back. If she had blurted out that she was not suitable, she might have dodged the whole engagement. Gerald's declaration makes the servants clap and gush over how auspicious it is. Katarina is officially Prince Gerald's fiancée now. Katarina can only panic, frozen with fiancé ringing in her head before she mentally screams, nah! Gerald just keeps smiling like sunshine, while Katarina realizes the danger just got real. From tomorrow onward, she has to throw even more effort into sword and magic practice if she wants to survive this doomed engagement. After cracking her head, Katarina Clays woke up with memories from another life and realized this world is Fortune Lover, the Otomi game where she is the doomed villainess. She's the duke's daughter, the heroine's bully, and every route ends in exile or death. Prince Gerald, one of the capture targets, is already her fiancé, so her only shot is to get strong enough to survive his sword and build a life through magic if she is ever exiled. She's been grinding swordplay and magic like her life depends on it, and now her inner selves go live with one goal: remove the destruction flags and live a long, prosperous life. Katarina snaps back into noble mode, calling out, "Ah, father!" as the survival plan goes into full swing. They're ratcheting the balking into full time and heading in. Katarina's father casually drops the next disaster. Now that her engagement is decided, the Clay's bloodline needs an heir, so he is adopting a boy from a branch family. Before Katarina can process the word stepbrother, a cute little boy is introduced as Keith. He politely bows and says he will be in her care, while her father orders her to look after him properly as his big sister. Katarina's survival instincts scream the obvious: another destruction flag has arrived. Katarina freezes because Keith has arrived earlier than expected, and she still has absolutely no plan for dodging this new destruction flag. When her father prompts her to introduce herself, she blurts out that she is Katarina and will be in his care, already panicking. Then she gets a good look at Keith Clays, her new little brother and another capture target from Fortune Lover. In the game, he will grow into a charming lady killer, but right now, he is just an extremely cute 8-year-old, which makes Katarina's survival brain short-circuit even harder. Her father calmly announces that Keith will live with them as part of the family, but Katarina barely hears him. She is trapped between terror over the destruction flag and pure older sister joy, because she has always wanted a younger sibling. Katarina panics through a perfect little noble smile and swears she has been listening properly, even though she absolutely has not. Her father calmly decides Keith has traveled far enough for one day and should rest, then drops the real bomb. From tomorrow, Katarina is responsible for looking after him. She forces herself to smile and wave Keith off with a bright, "I'll see you tomorrow." The second the conversation ends, she freezes because the adorable little brother problem has a name now: Keith Clays. Later, in bed, Katarina opens her secret notebook and writes down the truth that makes her stomach tighten. Keith Clays is a Fortune Lover character with a lonely upbringing. Another capture target is living under her roof and she still has no plan for him. Keith's past turns ugly fast. Born from an affair between a Cleese branch family head and a prostitute, he gets passed between families, despised by relatives, and bullied by his own siblings. When the bullying pushes him into awakening magic, his siblings are hurt in the chaos, and he is thrown out instead of protected. His power eventually reaches Ducles, who adopts him, but the Duchess mistakes him for her husband's illegitimate child and treats him coldly too. Even the servants cannot shield him, so Keith shuts himself alone in his room. Katarina's notes make the trap even worse. The game's Katarina hates this lonely stepbrother and torments him. When Keith enters the academy, he meets the heroine, but by then he is already a playboy, not from happiness, but from trying. The Keith Root's happy ending is sickeningly sweet. The heroine heals Keith's lonely heart and becomes the first person he ever truly loves. But Katarina, who values status above everything, cannot stand that a commoner dares to get close to the Duke's family. A lot of bullying follows, and the Root rots fast. Katarina harasses the heroine, becomes a criminal, loses her noble status, and is exiled. Then comes the real nightmare. If Keith fails to protect the heroine and Katarina wounds her deeply, Keith's heart breaks, and he murders Katarina with magic before disappearing. Curled in bed, Katarina clutches the notebook and screams, "No!" as Keith's bad ending locks into place like another death sentence. Katarina grips her notebook and realizes the Keith route is just as lethal as Gerald's. The only difference is whether she gets cut down by a sword or blasted away by magic. That settles it. Another emergency strategy meeting has to begin. Inside her head, a formal little Katarina bangs the gavel and opens the second Katarina Clay's destruction flag avoidance meeting, asking the assembled inner Katarinas for suggestions. One Katarina points out the obvious. Since Keith's ending is basically the same kind of death route as Gerald's, maybe they just keep practicing sword art and magic until Katarina is strong enough to survive either one. Inside Katarina's head, the emergency meeting lands on the worst part of Keith's root. Sword skills will not save her this time because he will kill her with magic. Keith's power is terrifying enough that the Head family adopted him, and Katarina's pathetic Earth thud feels completely useless against someone like that. Since the enemy is family now, the doom flag could spring at any moment. Panic erupts. Gerald's destruction end had almost seemed avoidable, and now Katarina is screaming that she does not want to die. But then her resolve hardens. If this is the situation, she has to do something about Keith immediately. Katarina's resolve curdles into something desperate. Even though her heart is overjoyed that she finally got the cute little brother she always wanted, she clenches her fist and forces herself to choose survival. Her answer is horrifying: put Keith in a cardboard box and leave him under a bridge. The other Katarinas recoil in horror. That is too awful. But the survival instinct is already screaming that it is the only way, until one Katarina raises her hand and politely asks if she can say something, leaving everyone wondering if she actually has a better idea. A sharp Katarina cuts through the panic. Keith only falls for the heroine because his loneliness leaves him desperate, so the fix is simple: make sure he is never lonely. If Keith never falls for the heroine, Katarina Clay's never reaches her destruction end. The inner meeting freezes in shock, then bursts into praise. Katarina adjusts her glasses, smug and glowing with genius energy, while the others call the strategy fantastic. Then tiny Keith, sweating in the corner, ruins the victory with the next impossible question. How exactly are they supposed to keep Keith from being lonely? Inside Katarina's head, the emergency meeting lands on one unanimous plan: keep Keith from ever being alone. No objections. They can finally dote on him to their heart's content, and the tiny Katarinas erupt with, "Why yes SSS." The official conclusion is simple: dote on their new cube brother Keith Clays. The inner Katarina broadcasts cheers like the destruction flag has already been crushed. The next morning, birds chirp outside the Clays mansion as Katarina calls for Keith, bright and eager to show him around the gardens. Keith thanks Katarina-sama politely as she leads him through the gardens, since he was resting yesterday and missed them. Katarina immediately pounces on the formality. They are siblings now, so he has to call her Nayeye and stop using polite language. Keith awkwardly protests that it is impolite, but Katarina is already melting. Being called Nayeye has always been her dream, and now her adorable little brother actually says, "I'll be in your care, Nayeye." Ay. Katarina's survival plan has instantly turned into shameless doting. Keith is cute, he is family, and she is completely overwhelmed by how lucky she is. Katarina drags Keith around the Clay's grounds like she is showing off her personal kingdom, pointing out the field and the lake where they can fish. Then she whips around to her favorite spot and declares it with wild pride while Keith just stares, completely thrown by her energy. At the giant tree, Katarina brags that the view from the top is amazing and asks if he has ever climbed one. When he hesitates, she says she will teach him and starts climbing first. She boasts that she was a tree-climbing genius in her past life, better than wild monkeys, and scrambles off the trunk while Keith watches in disbelief. The tree shakes as she calls out to him and nearly loses her footing. Katarina's tree-climbing lesson instantly turns into disaster when she slips and crashes down with a huge thud straight onto Keith. She barely feels the impact, but then she realizes who she landed on and completely loses it. Keith cannot die, not when she finally got the cute little brother she wanted. Keith, dazed underneath her, tries to call her Nea and tell her he is fine, but Katerina is already sobbing that she crushed her brother with her butt. Her screams echo across the clay's grounds while Keith desperately begs her to listen. Gerald rushes over after hearing Katerina fell from a tree, relieved to find her safe. Katerina admits the truth with heavy guilt. She only escaped unhurt because she crashed straight onto Keith, and Keith was lucky not to be badly hurt. She tries to defend herself by insisting she only fell because she got too excited and that she is normally great at climbing, but Keith can only respond by spitting tea in disbelief. Then Gerald notices something strange. Katerina's parents looked unusually affectionate today. Katerina explains that the awful misunderstanding has finally cleared up. Her mother realized Keith is not her father's secret love child, and their marriage has flipped into a disgustingly lovey-dovey happy family version. Crows call over the clay's grounds as Katerina and Keith head back from sword practice. Katerina struts along proudly, boasting that they worked hard today, and Keith gushes that Nei-san's spirit during practice was amazing. Then Katerina notices the field she made, and Keith asks why she created it at all. Katerina starts the answer, but her confidence suddenly cracks. She thought making a field would strengthen her earth magic, yet earth magic is usually for things like golems, and now she realizes something feels very wrong. All she can manage is a tiny thud in the dirt. It is weak, pathetically weak. Then Katerina pivots, asking if Keith has strong magic powers. Keith jolts, completely caught off guard. Katerina remembers Keith using powerful earth golems in the game to rescue the heroine, and her mind instantly goes from survival to profit. If she can control golems for heavy labor, she could do it for free and make money after exile. She turns to Keith, practically sparkling, and begs him to show her, just a little. Keith sighs like he already knows this is going to be trouble, but he agrees. With a small shaping motion, he forms a tiny earth golem, pours magic into it, and makes it trot along the ground. Katerina is amazed, but then she squints at the little thing and asks if they are all that size. Keith admits he can make them bigger if he uses more magic, and Katerina's excitement only gets worse. Katerina throws her arms up in front of a towering earth golem and screams that Keith is a genius. She can barely contain herself. Can he control the huge one the same way he controlled the tiny golems? Keith, a little nervous, admits he can, and when she begs him to make it move, he gives in with a warning, just a little. The giant golem stomps forward with heavy thuds, and Katerina is overwhelmed by the sheer force of real magic, the kind her old world never had but always fascinated her. Then she grabs Keith and drags him forward, bright-eyed and reckless. She wants to feel the power of magic for herself. A brutal crack shatters the silence. The earth golem's massive arm whacks Katerina away, sending her flying despite Keith's desperate pleas. The world goes dead silent as Keith screams her name. Katerina's eyes snap open to the sight of her father sobbing over her bed in overwhelming relief. She weakly begs him to let go, her mind entirely blank on what happened. Her mother delivers the grim truth. Keith's earth golem struck her and smashed her head against the ground. The doctor insists it is just a bump and swelling, but touching the sore spot still makes her wince. She jolts awake with one panicked question: where is Keith? Her father reveals he locked himself in his room the moment the doctor cleared her. Guilt twists in Katerina's chest as her father explains that Keith's magic is too powerful to control without a tutor, and he was strictly forbidden from using it. Katerina realizes she was too distracted by her cute new brother to enforce the rule. In her head, a warning screams, "Destruction flag." The truth is even worse. Keith had hurt his siblings with magic before and knew exactly how dangerous his power was. It shocked the Duke that Keith used it again, but it horrified him even more that Keith immediately confessed, insisted it was all his fault, and begged for punishment. Katerina is horrified by the injustice. Keith didn't do anything wrong. She was the one who demanded to see his magic, ignored his warnings, and got too excited. The guilt belongs entirely to her. Katerina forces out the truth. Keith isn't to blame. She got too excited, ignored the danger, and if anyone deserves punishment, it should be her. Her father smiles, relieved she told them, and insists he has no intention of punishing either of them. He pats her head and orders her to rest. But Katerina's mind snags on a darker reality. She already knew about Keith's traumatic upbringing from playing the game. That realization hits like a fresh doom flag. She bolts upright and blurts out that she did something incredibly wrong. Ignoring her injuries, Katerina bolts out of bed, yelling that she has to apologize to Keith. Her mother tries to stop her, her father screams her name, but Katerina stomps forward anyway. She reaches Keith's door and knocks, begging to be let in. Keith freezes at the sound of Nie. He insists he's fine, deflecting to ask about her wounds instead. Katerina brushes off her head injury and pushes harder. She absolutely needs to speak to him. Keith's voice cracks from behind the wood. He's sorry, but he can't stay by Nissan's side anymore. Katerina freezes, then starts hammering the door in sheer panic. Keith, open up! Her mind spirals. If he keeps shutting himself in, he'll grow to hate her. The Keith route flashes in her head like a death sentence. He becomes lonely, meets the heroine, they fall in love, and if Katerina gets in the way, she'll be exiled and killed by magic. Katerina hammers the locked door until a maid rushes over, horrified, asking what on earth she is doing. Katerina gasps that Keith locked himself in. The maid points out the obvious, maybe he doesn't want to be let in. That lands like poison in Katerina's head. If he keeps shutting himself away, this is going straight to destruction. The maid mutters that if Katerina wants in that badly, there's a master key in the servants' room. Katerina goes perfectly still, then her footsteps stomp away. Katerina storms off before the maid can finish, only to return brandishing a massive axe like she's about to declare war on the door. She announces she'll open it herself, assuming Keith must have hidden the master key. The maid panics, screaming at Katerina to put that thing down. Katerina's mind is already spiraling. If Keith keeps locking himself away, it's going to become a catastrophic problem. She swings the axe at the door and screams for Keith to get away from it. Katerina brings the axe down on Keith's door with a brutal bam, completely ignoring the maid screaming, "Ojo-sama," from the hallway. Behind the wood, Keith goes pale and dizzy with absolute terror, screaming, "Nissan," as her destruction flag panic devolves into literal door warfare. Katerina drops into a desperate apology, begging Keith's forgiveness for forcing him to use magic and ignoring his warnings about the golem. She insists she was the one who acted badly, made him worry, and pushed him into something he never wanted to do. Keith is stunned. He cannot understand why she is apologizing when he is certain he is the one who messed up. His voice cracks as he asks if she doesn't think he is scary, confessing that he hurt his siblings before and hurt her too. Katerina grips Keith's hand and tells him that if he can't control his magic yet, he just has to work at it. Once their tutor arrives, they can practice together. Keith clings to her hand, trembling, and asks if Nissan will stay by his side. Katerina's face lights up. Of course she will. They will always be together from now on. Then she suddenly panics, wondering if maybe Keith secretly hates her. Keith starts shaking harder, tears welling in his eyes. Keith finally breaks into a shining, tearful smile and thanks Katerina as Nissan, the sudden softness making Katerina freeze in panic. Then he lunges at her and Katerina blurts out, "What on earth are you doing?" Before she can process the apparent victory, her mother storms in and drags Keith away for a long talk. Keith protests that it isn't what it looks like, while Katerina calls after him that they will stay together forever. For one breath, it looks like she has captured Keith's heart and dodged the destruction flag. Katerina's 9th birthday arrives, wrapped in gifts and family smiles. Her father gives her a new dress, her mother piles on a stack of manners books, and Katerina beams through it all, thanking them with bright, awkward gratitude. Then Keith steps forward with a huge bouquet, calling her Nissan as he hands over the flowers. Katerina lights up, thanking him for the beautiful gift. In her head, the celebration turns into pure triumph. Keith's bad ending is avoided, and they are living happily as siblings. Katerina beams up at the clear sky, thrilled that the weather is perfect again. Perfect in her mind for getting straight back to fieldwork. Katerina is back in her field, glowing with dirt and earth magic happiness. She tells Gerald and Jordo that her tutor said, interacting with the source of one's magic doesn't mean literally working the soil, but farming has already become her hobby anyway. Gerald brought her watermelon seedlings, and she thanks him with pure delight. Jordo is left quietly crushed. He had actually wanted to give her a necklace. Katerina doesn't even hesitate. Seedlings over jewelry, every time. Then the mood crashes. Katerina suddenly drops into the dirt with a miserable why? Katerina's field has turned against her. The plants she personally tended have wilted, while the gardener's vegetables look perfectly healthy. She slumps in despair, admitting that even in her previous life she had a gift for accidentally killing plants. Keith immediately tries to cheer her up, telling her to take a break, and Jordo backs him up. Then the calm snaps into a quiet contest. Keith insists he'll take care of Nissan. Gerald claims the right because Katerina is his fiancée. Jordo fires back that they'll manage just fine without Keith glued to her side. Katerina watches their sparkling smiles and happily decides they become good friends fast. Meanwhile, her vegetables are still dying. Katerina is still stuck in vegetable rescue mode at dinner, chewing and spacing out while Duke Clays tries to get her attention. He mentions that an invitation came in the mail asking if she wants to attend her first tea party now that she's 9. The word lights her up, and her mind jumps straight to the Noble debut timeline. Then Katerina's mother shoots to her feet and shuts it down hard, snapping that it's absolutely out of the question. Katerina's mother still thinks she has no manners at all, especially since Katerina is literally stuffing her cheeks at the dinner table. But Duke Clays pushes back gently. This tea party is hosted by relatives, so it's not a stranger's house. It might be good practice for her to learn by doing. Then he drops the perfect loophole. What if she brings Keith? Keith, mouth full, immediately volunteers to accompany his Nissan. Katerina is shocked. She's the older sibling, so why should Keith have to babysit her first tea party? But her mother relaxes at the idea. The day of the tea party arrives, and the Hunt sisters welcome Katerina and Keith into their home. Lilia Hunt, 14, is introduced as the girl who will soon make her official debut into society, while the younger sisters look just like her. Katerina gives a polished greeting and presents Keith as her little brother. Keith says they are honored to be invited, and one of the girls answers in a shy, tiny voice. Mary Hunt, the fourth daughter, blushes and introduces herself, and Katerina nearly melts at how cute she is. Katerina reins herself in, remembering she isn't supposed to talk too much, and introduces herself properly as Katerina Clays. She quietly clocks that Mary doesn't look much like the rest of her siblings. The Hunt sisters crowd around her with excited questions, asking if she's the Clays girl and inviting her to talk, while Katerina can only stammer. Katerina lets out a long, defeated "ha" after surviving the greeting gauntlet. Everyone at the Hunt tea party is too absorbed in conversation to touch the sweets, so Katerina starts rescuing the leftovers herself. Her cheeks are stuffed with cupcakes as she mourns the waste and dreams of asking the Hunts for a bag to take everything home. Then Keith finally finishes his greetings and pops up with a bright Nissan, catching Katerina staring into space with her mouth full. Katerina can only mumble through the sugar, but her eyes suddenly sparkle. Mary notices that shine and leans in with a tentative question. Keith catches Katerina plotting to take the tea party sweets home, and she freezes like he just read her mind. He scolds her that it would make the Clay's name look bad and that her mother would ban sweets entirely if she found out. When Katerina decides the only solution is to eat everything right there, Keith reminds her of the 3-second rule disaster that got her banned for 3 days. She keeps munching anyway, cheeks full, while Keith panics that she's going to make herself sick. Katerina's stomach gives a nasty rumble right after she tries to play it off as a little fine. Keith panics, realizing she ate way too much again, but Katerina is already sprinting down the hall yelling that she needs the bathroom. She barely makes it in time. Afterward, she pats her stomach in relief, thrilled she ran fast enough that nobody important saw, just a few servants, so she thinks she is safe. Then, with a bright, "by the way," she starts to say something else. Katerina realizes she has wandered somewhere completely unfamiliar, surrounded by towering roses and mansion walls with no idea where she is. Then a rustle in the garden catches her attention. She spots a girl among the flowers and instantly recognizes her, Mary Hunt. Mary turns around startled and blurts out, "Kei Katerina-sama!" Katerina asks Mary why she is sitting alone out here. Mary quietly admits she just wanted a change of pace. She isn't very good at lively places. Katerina almost explains that she only ended up here because she overate sweets, ran for the bathroom, and got lost. But she can't say that. Seeing Mary hang her head, Katerina thinks it is a waste for someone so lovely to look so small. She worries Mary might be scared because of her villainous face. Katerina panics internally. If she suddenly says, "I won't be mean to you," it will only make her look even more like a bully. So she forces a bright smile and changes the subject, telling Mary the garden is beautiful. Katerina is completely won over by the flower-filled garden, gushing that every bloom looks stunning. She zeroes in on the roses like they are living proof that someone, somewhere, knows how to grow flowers properly. Then her admiration turns into sudden intensity. She grabs Mary's hands and begs to be introduced to the gardener responsible. Mary can only stare in confusion while Katerina sparkles with desperate hope, ready to learn anything from whoever can make flowers bloom like that. Mary shyly admits that she is the one tending the garden, and Katerina nearly freezes at the revelation. When Katerina asks if Mary really handles the entire garden, Mary blushes and clarifies that she only takes care of these flowers and the nearby plants. That is enough to send Katerina into full awe. She lunges forward, panting with excitement, calling the garden amazing and demanding to know Mary's secret for maintaining such perfect flowers, even interrogating her about the soil. Mary just stares back, dizzy and overwhelmed. Katerina's admiration for Mary's flowers snaps into full emergency mode. She grabs Mary, realizes she is getting way too excited, and blurts that she wants advice from the girl who created such a beautiful garden. Mary freezes at the word advice, then nearly short-circuits when Katerina explains the real problem. She is trying to create a vegetable field. Mary tries to be helpful, but she has to admit she has never grown vegetables before. Katerina falls quiet, hand to her chin, as her old farming disaster comes rushing back. Mary can only apologize. She can listen to Katerina's farming crisis, but she has no experience growing vegetables. Katerina's brain suddenly clicks, and she grabs Mary's hands with blazing determination. Mary has to come to her place and see the vegetables herself. The invitation hits Katerina a second later, and she freezes in shock at what she just blurted out. Still, the idea sticks. Mary is brought over to Katerina's estate, where Katerina eagerly shows her the vegetable field in person. Katerina's vegetable field has come back to life, and she is glowing with gratitude for Mary's help. After spending so much time together, she has even started calling her simply Mary. Mary smiles and insists the field recovered because Katerina-sama worked so hard at it. Katerina keeps gushing that Mary is amazing, admitting she thought the plants were going to wilt and die, but Mary just says she's being too kind. Katerina's admiration for Mary's gardening only gets more intense. She is convinced Mary has truly special hands. If even a wilting plant were placed in her care, Mary could revive it and bring it back to life. Then Katerina lands on the perfect phrase, "Mary has green fingers." Mary freezes, confused, but Katerina explains it means Mary has a natural talent for growing plants. Mary goes silent as Katerina praises her gardening like it is some incredible, magical gift. Mary shyly asks Katerina if she can come over to play again, even though the field has been restored. Katerina answers with the biggest smile, telling her she is always welcome anytime. Later, Katerina keeps praising Mary's green fingers while walking with Keith. Keith instantly recognizes the phrase and asks if she read "The Girl with the Green Fingers Chew." Katerina freezes inside. She doesn't think she ever read that book. The words just popped into her head while she was watching Mary. Still, the phrase feels weirdly familiar. Katerina overhears Mary's sisters talking. Mary has become so much more cheerful lately, and they are even smiling about how scared she used to be of them. Katerina's face goes pitch black with guilt. Of course Mary was scared. It must be her villainous face. Keith weakly tries to deny it. Then Katerina admits Mary seemed painfully timid whenever she spoke. The truth behind that timidity hits hard. Mary's mother became the Hunt family's second wife. After the first wife died, the marriage was never welcomed, and Mary lost her mother too, when she was only 5. That is why Mary was so fragile. Her sisters disliked her, home was cruel, and all of it crushed her confidence. Keith quietly says Mary is probably all right by now, but Katerina stops him with a sharp question. Keith says Mary is probably all right, but it is only a hunch. Katerina still wishes he would stay her cute little brother a little longer. Then Mary's sisters talk about how Keith has matured lately, and casually reveal that Mary and Prince Alan, Gerald's younger twin brother, are the same age and a good match. With Duke Hunt's wealth and standing, their engagement may be finalized soon. Katerina freezes at the idea of Mary becoming Alan's fiancée, then bolts away while Keith calls after her. Son, where are you going? Katerina reads through Alan Stewart's history, Gerald's younger twin brother, the fourth prince, and another capture target. As a sickly child, Alan was overprotected until he grew into a spoiled, prickly prince type, always measured against Gerald and desperate to beat him. By 15, he enters the Magic Academy with a massive inferiority complex and trains obsessively just to surpass his brother. Then comes the first school exam disaster. Alan ranks third, behind Gerald and the heroine. Losing to both his twin brother and a commoner girl makes him see the heroine as a rival too. But the heroine doesn't crush him. She smiles and tells him, Alan-sama is perfect just the way he is. That kindness melts his competitiveness and inferiority. He softens, gets on better. Katerina flips to Alan's route and immediately finds the unfairness. She barely appears, and Mary Hunt takes her place as the rival. Mary, Alan's fiancée and a duke's daughter, is a wonderful lady with perfect manners, an obstacle to the heroine, but not a monster. She truly loves Alan from the bottom of her heart and gets jealous of the heroine, yet she never stoops to Katerina's level of bullying. Alan doesn't love her either. He treasures Mary like a cute little sister. Katerina can only sigh at how different this is from her own Gerald route, then asks what happens in the endings. The answer makes her grip the book hard enough to shake. In the happy ending, Mary gives Alan to the heroine and cries while asking them to support him. In the bad ending, Alan and Mary marry as promised, and everything ends. Katerina explodes in outrage. Mary is a rival character too, so why does Mary get no destruction end? She can't stand how wonderful Mary is, even as the rival. Mary gets to love Alan, step aside in the happy ending, or marry him in the bad ending, and Alan still gets happiness either way. Meanwhile, Katerina is the only one branded a pathetic, terrible villain and dragged toward death. She sobs and screams that it is completely unreasonable, demanding to write a complaint to the production company. If they think this setup is fair, they should try being reborn as Katerina and live through the doom themselves. Katerina's rage snaps into recognition. Mary Hunt is the same girl as her dear friend, just not the proud, confident rival from the game yet. The real Mary is still shy, still learning, and hasn't even met Alan properly. She can't even write Prince Alan's name right, while the game version looked down on Katerina. Katerina remembers Alan's first meeting with Mary, when he smiled and told her, "Mary is so amazing. You really have green fingers." Those words pull Mary out of her insecurity, make her fall for Alan, and drive her to become a splendid young lady worthy of him. Katerina reads it all with tears in her eyes and admits it really is a good story. Katerina finally remembers where green fingers came from. It was Alan's famous line to Mary in the game. Her happy little realization turns into horror the second the consequence hits her. She already said Alan's romantic phrase to Mary first. Now Alan's beautiful future confession could sound like a cheap rehash of something Katerina stole. Katerina spirals into total plagiarism guilt, imagining Mary and Alan confused by the copied line, while she sits frozen in silence, crushed by the thought that she may have ruined Alan's route before it even starts. Katerina slams the book onto her head and forces herself to brighten up. What is done is done. Alan is still a wonderful Otome game prince, so even if she stole one of his lines, it probably won't matter. Her real mission is to remove the destruction flags, and this tiny problem will probably solve itself. Probably. Then she suddenly remembers Keith. She shuts herself away, panicking that she left him behind, and when Keith calls for her and asks if she is alright, Katerina shouts that it is nothing, while her stolen phrase hangs over her like another doom flag. Katerina wipes sweat from her brow under the brutal summer heat, laughing that it is already the middle of summer. Her field is thriving again after being resurrected. Plenty of sun, plenty of water, and Mary really came through for her. Katerina thinks about Mary Hunt, the Duke's daughter and Alan's rival in the game, and feels genuinely happy that they became such good friends. In the game, Katerina and Mary barely liked each other, but now they are getting along beautifully. Then the guilt sneaks back in. Katerina accidentally plagiarized one of the game's romantic Alan and Mary moments when she told Mary, "You have green fingers." Mary's confused, "Eh?" And Katerina's flustered, "Oops. Well, that can't be helped." Still sting, but Katerina pushes through it. Life is good right now, and she throws her fist up, determined to win. Katerina congratulates Mary on her engagement to Prince Alan, and Mary beams at the thought that they are both fiancés of princes now. She is happy to be in the same position as Katerina-sama, but Katerina notices something strange under that smile. When Katerina asks if Mary has met Alan yet, Mary answers yes. Katerina gulps and presses for how it went, then awkwardly tries to frame it as just wondering what kind of person he is. The truth is worse. She stole Alan's famous green fingers line before he ever got to use it, and Mary's quiet, strained, well, makes Katerina's guilt hit like a fresh doom flag. Mary's meeting with Alan was almost painfully simple. He was very handsome, and he praised the way she takes care of her garden, just like Katerina did. Katerina practically lunges for the next romantic beat, but Mary just smiles and admits, that was it. Katerina nearly explodes from shock. Then she remembers the real danger and asks if Alan mentioned Mary's green fingers at all. Mary gives a shy, well, and Katerina instantly melts with relief. Alan still got to say his famous line properly after all. Mary, meanwhile, blushes hard because Katerina-sama seems so directly interested in her, turning Katerina's doom panic into another flustered Mary moment. Mary blushes and admits she did tell Prince Alan exactly what Katerina-sama told her. Mary has green fingers. Katerina freezes in horror. She grabs Mary by the shoulders and demands if Mary really told Alan about that line. Mary squeaks that yes, she did. Mary glows with happiness, explaining she was so moved when Katerina-sama said it to her that she told Alan-sama right away. Katerina's face falls into shadow. Mary told him before he ever had the chance, so Alan couldn't say the line himself. Katerina clocks the one tiny mercy. Mary likes Prince Alan, but she hasn't fallen in love with him yet. Even so, Katerina's guilt comes down hard. She practically apologizes to Alan for stealing the start of his moment. She grabs onto the remaining hope. Their engagement is already decided, so Alan still has a chance. She pumps herself up, wishing him good luck, while Mary stares in confusion. When Mary asks if Katerina is alright or just hungry, Katerina reassures her and thinks how genuinely lovely Mary really is. Then she makes her decision. Since she got in Alan and Mary's way, she will do everything she can to help them be happy, and she silently cheers them both on. Katerina's field is finally close to harvest, and she is quietly enjoying the thought that all that work is about to pay off. Then Anne comes sprinting over, breathless and panicked, shouting that a prince is here and asking to see her. Katerina barely reacts at first. Gerald visits so often that Anne should just let him in like usual. But Anne, still panting, cuts her off hard. It isn't Prince Gerald. Katerina freezes. Huh? Anne drops the real bomb. The fourth prince, Alan, is here to see her. Katerina's face goes blank with shock. Huh? Eh? But why? And suddenly the whole place feels wrong. Somehow Katerina just knows this is going to be bad. Alan is already sprawled in a chair, arms crossed and furious, the moment Anne rushes in apologizing for keeping him waiting. His first words to her are a sharp, "You're late." Anne nearly snaps. This prince showed up unannounced and didn't even offer a proper greeting, so why is he acting like he is the wronged one? Katerina is completely thrown by how brutally direct Alan is. He doesn't waste a second on politeness, he just lands in front of her with prince-level arrogance and a glare that makes her stammer that he is very frank. Katerina forces a smile, reminding herself not to snap at an 8-year-old. She apologizes for the wait, and Alan Stewart introduces himself with the icy polish of a prince. He is handsome, exactly as a captured target should be, but his glare and posture feel painfully self-important. Compared to Gerald, he seems much less kind, a brutal judgment coming from the girl who was arrogant before she hit her head. Katerina asks why he came. Alan's expression hardens. It is about Mary Hunt. Alan cuts straight to the point. Mary Hunt is his fiancée now, and he knows Katerina and Mary are close. Katerina brightens, thinking this is just a friendly chat about Mary. But Alan's fingers start tapping in irritation. He leans forward, shaking with barely contained fury, and explodes across the table, then stops seducing her. Katerina's soul practically leaves her body. Seducing? Alan explodes across the table, demanding Katerina stop seducing Mary. He trembles with pure jealousy, insisting Mary only ever talks about Katerina and rejects him solely because of her. He grabs Katerina by the shoulders and shakes her, declaring she used that face of hers to corrupt the pure Mary, while Mary blushes and desperately defends her friend. Katerina fires back instantly. Alan is the one in the wrong for inviting Mary on days she already promised to visit the Clay's estate. Anne begs her to calm down, but Katerina points a straight, unforgiving finger at him. If Alan had even a shred of charm, Mary would accept his invitations. Instead, she only talks about Katerina because Alan is simply too boring. Alan's crushed pride snaps into something far worse. He starts laughing, genuinely thrilled that someone has finally insulted him directly to his face. Everyone freezes in dread as Katerina realizes calling him boring was a fatal mistake. Alan points straight at her, eyes burning with challenge, and declares a match. Alan Stewart versus Katerina. Fight. Anne is horrified by the absurdity of the terms. Alan, assuming the upper hand, lets Katerina choose the challenge because she is a girl. She immediately picks tree climbing. Alan freezes at the suggestion, his confidence wavering. That hesitation only makes Katerina grin harder. She knows she is built for this, and she declares she will make the match painfully quick. Katerina flashes a predatory grin and asks if he is ready. Alan chokes out a startled sound before forcing a confident yes through his rising panic. Anne and Mary beg them to stop before someone gets hurt, but Alan confirms the rule: whoever reaches the top first wins. The match explodes into frantic motion the exact second Anne shouts go. The tree climbing match is a disaster for Alan before it even gets going. Anne shouts that it is already over. A red-faced Alan refuses to accept defeat, demanding another round. Katerina grins like she just conquered a kingdom. This is exactly the kind of fight a former monkey girl was born for, leaving Alan hauled away with his royal pride completely wrecked. After the matches, Alan keeps showing up, and their bitter rivalry somehow twists into a genuine friendship over tea and sweets. Katerina notices he seems happier lately, a welcome change. But she drifts off so badly that Gerald has to ask if she is alright. She tries to mention Alan, but the twin brothers' lingering hostility toward Gerald makes the topic too awkward to finish. Jordo strolls into Katerina's house like he owns the place, smiling that this is his fiancée's home after all. Alan's fist clenches so hard it practically creaks. He snaps that he came today for a match, and Jordo better not interfere. Jordo drives the knife in without missing a beat, calmly mentioning he heard Alan has not won a single match. The remark leaves Alan pale and sweating. Alan and Jordo lock into a hostile stare-down, leaving Mary stuck in the freezing blast radius. Katerina forces a bright, desperate smile and suggests swapping tree climbing for another kind of match before her mother catches them and scolds them both. When the others suggest instruments, Katerina grabs the one option that might save her pride, the piano. Katerina sits at the piano and starts playing with a clumsy, discordant clang, finishing with a relieved exhale. She thinks she made mistakes but did a pretty good job overall. Then it is Alan's turn. The music is smooth, sparkling, and utterly effortless, leaving Katerina staring in total shock at how impossibly good he actually is. Alan plays the exact same song Katerina just attempted, but his hands turn the clumsy notes into something completely different. Mary claps first, breathless with praise, and Katerina backs her up, insisting he really does have immense talent. Alan shrinks away from the praise as nothing special. Then he snaps, accusing them of giving him empty compliments and demands they stop making fun of him. Mary finds Alan sitting alone under a tree, arms folded and sulking in the aftermath of the piano match. She rustles out from the bushes, genuinely worried, but Alan immediately twists her concern into an accusation. He claims she only came to laugh at him for daring to think he was good at something. Mary crouches beside him and bluntly calls him out. He really lacks self-confidence. Alan finally admits the deep wound hiding under all that bluster. All his life, everyone has compared him to Gerald, and no matter what he does, he can never beat his twin brother. Katerina suddenly realizes this really was Alan's tragic backstory and fortune lover. But she connects the dots. Alan was never talentless. In music, he was always better than Gerald. Alan snaps, asking what that is supposed to mean, firing back that Gerald is basically untouchable. Katerina admits Gerald really does seem flawless. He helped in her field and was even more effective than she was. His sword skills are excellent, his academics are unmatched, and he is always hanging around her place. Katerina drops the bomb. She knows Gerald's weakness, and Alan freezes in total shock. She remembers a couple of weeks earlier, when a creature suddenly appeared between her feet during the vegetable harvest. She grabbed it herself to protect Mary. The instant she did, Gerald saw it and ran away as fast as his legs could carry him. Katerina whispers to Alan that she has a theory about Gerald's weakness, and she wants to test it right now. Alan asks what the plan is. Katerina tells him to just hide while Mary wanders off calling for her. Then Katerina gives the signal. Alan panics, hurls the object, and screams like he is the one being attacked. Alan cuts in, panicked, asking what on earth she just threw. Katerina grins and starts to answer, and the truth lands hard: snakes. Alan freezes in absolute horror as the snake appears, but the terrifying scare collapses into pure comedy when it turns out to be a harmless paper fake. Alan's face twists in disbelief as the truth finally sinks in. Gerald's weakness is snakes. Katerina practically sparkles with triumph, throwing both fists up in victory and cackling that she has found the weakness of the otherwise perfect prince. Then, Jorda's shadow drops over them. He wears a bright, dangerous smile, asking why Katerina seems to be in such high spirits. Alan stammers Gerald's name as the older twin arrives with that same polished smile, asking what they are doing out here. Then Gerald's hand closes around the fake snake. His smile remains bright, but his tone turns icy as he asks whether Katerina, a 9-year-old duke's daughter, would really throw this kind of thing at her own fiancé. Katerina's stomach drops. A brand new destruction flag blooms right in front of her. Gerald's smile turns dangerously pleasant as he decides he must greet Duchess Clays right now. He wants to have a long talk with her about Katerina's tree climbing matches and the part where she throws snakes at him. Mary panics and tries to stop him, but Gerald is already glowing with cheerful menace. Gerald really does tell Katerina's mother everything, and Katerina gets severely reprimanded for the snake stunt. But instead of feeling defeated, she sprawls out laughing. She found Gerald's weak point after all. Strangely, Alan starts talking to Gerald normally too. Katerina remains completely unaware that her bizarre snake obsession has quietly helped the twin brothers get closer. A year after meeting Prince Alan, Katerina has turned doom avoidance into a full training regime. Her notebook is packed with destruction avoidance tasks, swords, magic, and a highly detailed snake sketch marked realistic. Her earth magic has improved too, but only into a pathetic 15-centimeter bump. She still dreams of someday shouting Earth Wall and looking genuinely cool. Katerina gets completely swallowed by the Emerald Princess and Sophia, a story about a princess and a commoner girl becoming friends. She flops onto the bed like the book just punched her in the heart. But in noble society, romance novels are treated like trash, forcing her to keep the hobby secret. The maid who first got her hooked is gone now. With no one around who cares, Katerina's new obsession comes with a sharp, quiet loneliness. Prince Gerald and Alan are putting together a royal tea party, and a huge crowd is expected. Katerina clutches the invitation and declares she needs to find another person who likes romance novels. When she arrives, the grand estate is packed and buzzing with chatter. She immediately realizes the scale of this party is absolutely crazy. Katerina realizes Gerald and Alan have been completely swallowed up by host duty since the first greetings. She tries the tea, nearly melts, and blurts that it is delicious. Then the royal spread hits her: cakes, jellies, fruit, sweets everywhere. She gracefully excuses herself for the ladies' room before her stomach reaches its absolute limit. A dog bursts into Katerina's path and she nearly shrieks out of her skin. It is a guard dog, barking and loose somewhere in the estate, and Katerina has no idea why it is there. The dog turns, locks onto her, and Katerina bolts. She goes screaming for it to stop and leave her alone as she dashes for her life. The dog finally gives up and goes away, leaving Katerina panting high up in a tree, whispering that she can finally climb down and get to the bathroom. Then she looks below her and freezes. Somehow, a whole crowd has gathered right underneath the tree. She begs the people below to hurry up and move already, desperate and sweating. Katerina launches herself out of the tree and lands hard right in front of the crowd. Her face is pure desperation as she begs them to move and let her through quickly so she can go to the toilet. The nobles below do not understand. They scatter in panic, fleeing from her like she is some terrifying, unhinged monster. Katarina's desperate dash to the bathroom nearly stalls when she spots a girl among the roses. Pure white hair, red eyes, and skin so pale she looks almost unreal. Katarina is instantly dazzled, thinking what a beautiful person she is. But then the biological emergency slams back into her head, and she bolts away, leaving the white-haired girl staring after her in confusion. Katarina makes it to the bathroom just in time. When she comes back out, the garden is still packed, and she suddenly freezes. It is the white-haired girl from the roses. Now that Katarina gets a proper look at her, she is completely stunned. Snow-white skin, silky white hair, shining red eyes. She looks exactly like Sophia from The Emerald Princess and Sophia. Katarina's brain catches fire as the white-haired girl's shy lines line up perfectly with the novel. In Katarina's memory, the incognito princess reaches out and murmurs that her hair is beautiful, like silk. Completely dazed, Katarina reaches toward the girl's hair and asks if it would be alright if she touched it just a little. Katarina's head detonates when the girl mentions the title. She lunges in, grabs her, and shakes her, asking if she means the Emerald Princess romance novel. Then Keith cuts in, asking what on earth she is doing. Katarina finally notices Mary and the Whispering Nobles staring, turning her triumphant declaration instantly into a mortified oops. Katarina snaps back to herself and releases Sophia's dress, mortified that she got so excited she forgot basic manners without even introducing herself. She bows and formally introduces herself as Katarina Clays. The white-haired girl shyly answers that her name is Sophia Escart. The name hits Katarina like a second thunderbolt. Katarina is already sparkling with excitement, clasping Sophia and begging her to please have a chat with her. Then Gerald and Alan take the platform to wrap up the tea party, announcing that it is time for the guests to start going home. Katarina freezes in horror, refusing to let Sophia slip away. She grabs her hands and begs her to visit her house next time. Katarina finally gets Sophia to agree to meet when she is available, and she clings to that promise like buried treasure. The calendar becomes Katarina's absolute obsession. Sophia's visit date is circled, surrounded by hearts, and Katarina spends the days leading up to it giggling to herself. On the day Sophia is finally coming, Katarina bolts past her maid with a delighted thank you, leaving Anne to chase after her. Katarina swings the door open, already glowing with excitement, but the greeting dies in her mouth. Sophia is not alone. A dark-haired boy stands beside her, so stunningly handsome that Katarina's thoughts instantly short-circuit. He bows with perfect elegance and thanks Katarina for inviting his little sister, introducing himself as her older brother, Nickel. Katarina clocks Sophia's family chaperone and instantly assumes Sophia must have lived a sheltered life. She puts on her brightest smile, thanks Sophia for coming, and introduces herself as Katarina Clays. The dark-haired boy beside Sophia answers with perfect elegance, Nickel Ascart. When he calmly confirms he is the Prime Minister's son, the realization detonates in her head. Katarina's realization hits hard. Nickel Ascart is not just Sophia's elegant older brother. He is the Prime Minister's son, a year above Katarina, Gerald, and the others, and the quiet senpai-type capture target from Fortune Lover. Nickel is dangerously devoted to his little sister, which makes Sophia the rival in his route. Katarina assumes she has to win his affection before Sophia does. Katarina's emergency mental meeting drops the biggest relief yet. The rival in Nickel Ascart's route is not Katarina. The only confirmed fact about Nickel is that he is dangerously devoted to Sophia, so no destruction flag should rise for her. Katarina explodes with joy, gripping Sophia's hands with sparkling intensity and pulling them right back into the conversation they left off last time. Katarina and Sophia are so wrapped up in their chat that Nickel gets completely left out in the cold. Mary apologizes for interrupting and says it is almost time to leave, so Katarina quickly apologizes to Nickel for monopolizing Sophia. Then, Katarina's eyes go starry at Sophia's hair, and she asks if she can touch it just a little, calling it beautiful. Sophia only manages a stunned sound as the room drops into dead silence, and Katarina instantly knows she has blown it. Her brain starts sprinting, terrified everyone will decide she is a massive pervert for asking to touch a lady's hair after approaching her while breathing heavily at their first meeting. Then Sophia quietly says it is not disgusting. Katarina flails even harder, shouting that it is all a massive misunderstanding. Katarina's brain nearly breaks from Sophia's quiet answer. Sophia, flustered and trembling, clarifies what she meant. She thought Katarina did not find her appearance disgusting. Sophia lowers her eyes and confesses the reason behind that fear. Her white hair looks like an old person's, and her red eyes look like blood, leading cruel people to call her a cursed child. Katarina snaps back from shock straight into outrage. She declares this world has all kinds of hair and eye colors, so hearing anyone call that cursed makes her blood boil. It is pure slander. Nickel explains the rot behind it. Jealous people spread vicious rumors about the Asgard house and his father's achievements, but even after Katarina's furious defense, Sophia still believes her appearance is truly disgusting. Katarina realizes Sophia has probably been dragged through cruel talk for years, even though Katarina has never met anyone with an appearance like hers. So she blurts it out anyway. She still thinks Sophia is beautiful. Desperate not to sound like a pervert, Katarina tries to make it respectable. She declares Sophia's hair is smooth like silk, her eyes sparkle like rubies, and therefore she's very beautiful. Katarina's invitation lands like a lifeline. She asks Sophia to become her friend, then adds that she would be happy to have Sophia come over and play again if she wants. Sophia grips Katarina's hands, tears welling up as she smiles through them. For the first time, Katarina's warmth reaches past every cruel word Sophia has carried for years. After Sophia and Nickel go home, Katarina checks her notes from her game memories, but there is nothing new at all. Then the realization settles in. Sophia is the little sister of a capture target, and somehow she is a rival character too. But this time, Katarina does not have to panic about standing in Sophia's way. She launches herself onto the bed, screaming that they will be friends forever. Autumn is closing in, and Katarina is absolutely glowing over a book, cheering that reading season is even better now that she has Sophia to discuss books with. When the three girls gather, the conversation turns into a full charm audit. Sophia swoons over a black-haired, black-eyed Earl with devilish charm, saying he reminds her of Nickel. Mary agrees that Nickel has a mysterious, irresistible aura. Katarina's smile turns dangerously strategic. Nicole barely talks because he is the quiet type, and since he is Sophia's older brother, getting closer to Sophia might be the perfect way to get on his good side. She grabs Sophia's hands with sparkling intensity and invites her over to the Klez house to look through her book collection. When Sophia agrees, Katarina launches herself into the air, screaming yes. At the Klez mansion, Katarina welcomes Sophia in with a kind of excitement that is barely contained. Inside, Sophia and Nicole sit down for tea, but Sophia gets so caught up in the moment that she gulps it down too fast, forcing Nickel to gently remind her to take it slow. Then the door opens and Katarina rushes in, bright-eyed and thrilled to see her new friend. Katarina goes completely still as a dazzling man and woman appear before her, radiating so much beauty that her brain short-circuits. The man calmly introduces himself as Dan Ascart, Sophia and Nicole's father, and presents his wife Radia. Katarina's mind detonates. These are the parents, which explains the flawless looks, but the bigger shock is that Dan Ascart is the prime minister personally scouted by the king himself. The sheer, blinding radiance of Dan and Radia Ascarat hits Katarina like a physical blow, freezing her in place. Keith hisses, demanding his sister pull herself together. She rattles off a flawless introduction as Katarina clays, thanking them for the invitation, while Keith steps up as her younger brother. Dan calmly explains they simply wanted to meet the siblings before calling for their daughter, who is already waiting nervously in her room. The news only tightens the knot of anxiety in Katarina's stomach. Radia Ascarat thanks Katarina with a radiant, disarming smile. Sophia has talked about her non-stop, and ever since their meeting, Sophia seems genuinely happy. Katarina takes her hand, relief washing over her, and insists she truly enjoys talking with Sophia Sama. Radia squeezes back, admitting her profound gratitude for such a wonderful friend. Dan bows deeply, adding his own thanks, and Katarina is utterly overwhelmed by the sheer warmth of Sophia's entire family. Dan and Radia are so dazzling that Katarina's brain nearly short-circuits. She forces out a blushy, stammering, "The pleasure is all mine," while her mind screams that they are simply too beautiful. When Dan announces they will call for their daughter, the door slides open. Sophia and Nickel appear, bringing a silence so heavy, Katarina feels her skull crack under the pressure. She pushes through with a careful greeting, terrified her villainous resting face will ruin everything, while Keith quietly agrees they are wonderful. Katarina vents internally that their mother should be just a little gentler, though the heavy atmosphere of nagging still hangs over the room. Mary and Keith appear at the doorway, and Mary calls out warmly to Katarina. Katarina quietly adds that maybe their mother just wants a calmer life too. Mary welcomes them with open arms, thanking them for coming, while Keith huffs in quiet agreement beside her. Katarina and Sophia step into the library and stop dead. Shelves are packed floor to ceiling with books. Katarina instantly goes feral, dragging out a ridiculous mountain of volumes, while Sophia and Mary crowd around, completely caught up in the frenzy. The girls huddle over together, laughing and shining with pure happiness. Nickel and Keith sit quietly with their tea. Time melts away completely. Then, reality hits a brick wall. If she doesn't go home now, her mother will be furious. Sophia thanks Katerina for a wonderful time. Suddenly, Katerina panics. She forgot the very book she recommended to Sophia earlier and left it in her room. The excitement snaps right back into focus when she realizes Sophia is talking about that exact book. Katerina clutches it like buried treasure, beaming that it is amazing and her absolute current favorite. She starts to rush off to fetch it, but Sophia stops her with a gentle smile, saying it is perfectly fine to borrow it next time. Katerina darts for the stairs, calling for Sophia to wait and insisting there is no need to rush. Sophia watches her go and lets out a soft, "Ah," somehow. The whole moment feels strangely, deeply nostalgic. Katerina has just realized she forgot the book they were talking about, so she waves for Sophia to hold on while she sprints upstairs to retrieve it. Katerina and Sophia walk off together with an easy, unshakable warmth between them, like they have already settled into being lifelong best friends. Katerina's heart is completely sold. If she had met Sophia in her past life, they absolutely would have spent their days reading manga and playing otome games together. Nearby, Mary watches them glow with happiness, already dreaming of introducing Katerina to those very games. Nicole quietly murmurs, "Katerina Clay-sama," taking in the peaceful moment. Katerina nearly chokes as her true mission crashes back into her mind. She was supposed to talk more with Nicole-sama today, and the Askarot book collection made her forget everything. Nicole thanks her for spending time with Sophia, but Katerina insists she should be the one thanking him. She beams that she had so much fun browsing the library, and is deeply grateful to Nicole and his parents for welcoming her so kindly. For the first time, Nicole goes dead quiet at the words, "My parents." Katerina blurts out that Nicole's parents came to greet them earlier and are truly wonderful. The words hit him so hard he can only answer, "Is that so? Thank you very much." The silence that follows is brutal. Nicole suddenly demands to know what Katerina and Keith were talking about earlier. Katerina instantly recognizes this as her opening, ready to weaponize her past life knowledge to find a safe topic, while Mary watches in total confusion. Katerina goes into full emergency mode. To keep Nicole talking, she weaponizes 17 years of memories from her old life. The trick she lands on is the unstoppable old lady next door, the kind of person who can trap you in conversation for 30 minutes simply because she means well. Katerina remembers the opening move and goes for it with a shining smile, clasping her hands as she tells Nicole he is really lucky to have such wonderful parents and a cute little sister. Katerina fires off the old lady's perfect opening line. Nicole is such a lucky person to have married such a wonderful wife. She remembers the sheer horror of that woman trapping her father in conversation for over 30 minutes. Nicole's face goes completely blank as he quietly repeats, "Lucky person." Katerina clenches her fist in triumph, convinced she has imitated the old lady perfectly. Then she immediately freezes because she has absolutely no idea what she's supposed to say next. Katerina's accidental compliment hits Nicole like a physical slap. He stares at her, voice flat with disbelief, asking if she really thinks he is a lucky person. Katerina's smile instantly wobbles into an awkward, "You. She scrambles to explain that she only meant he has such a fantastic family, but the damage is already done. Katerina freezes in pure panic, wondering if she just chose the worst possible words in human history. Katerina stands there anxiously while Nicole just stares, making the silence sharper by the second. Then he quietly admits, "You're not mistaken." A soft, dazzling smile spreads across Nicole's face as he places a hand over his heart. With wonderful parents he can look up to, and a kind, cute little sister, he really is a lucky person. Katerina is completely caught off guard, frozen by how beautiful and utterly sincere he looks. Mary and Sophia are completely swept into the novel Katerina recommended. The charming Earl inside it is terrifyingly captivating, with a smile that feels several times more dangerous than normal. Upstairs, Katerina finally grabs the book and comes hurrying back down, breathless but beaming. At the bottom of the stairs, Nicole calls, "Katerina-sama!" and Mary startles at the sound. Katerina pops into view with the book hugged tightly to her chest, apologizing for making them wait. Katerina finally rushes back with the book and hands it to Sophia, relieved she didn't lose it. Sophia thanks her and starts to head off with Mary. Katerina's relief dies the exact second she spots Keith staring at Mary like he has been struck by lightning. Katerina's mind screams that Keith's heart just got stolen by Mary's devilishly charming smile, and she blurts out, "Keith!" Katerina's panic spikes. If Keith falls for Mary, that is an absolute disaster. If she loses him to Nicole's devastatingly charming smile, that is a disaster too. She snaps out of it, grabs Keith by the arm, and loudly declares it is time for their departure because someone has come to pick them up. She shoves him away before he can fall any deeper under Mary's spell. Sophia and Mary wave cheerfully from the doorway as Katerina escapes with Keith in tow. The carriage rattles away through the evening, carrying Katerina and Keith home after the chaos of the tea party. Katerina, cheeks propped on her hand, beams with satisfaction and asks if today wasn't fun. Keith answers with an easy, honest smile, "It sure was, Nissan." After all her frantic panic over Mary and Nickel, the ride home lands on something warm and profoundly simple. Katerina realizes Nickel is just as dangerously charming as the Earl in the book, and instantly vows to protect Keith from Nickel-sama's charms at all costs. Mary is hit with the exact same thought from another angle. Katerina's number of rivals has increased again. She can only wonder how many more women Katerina is going to seduce before she is finally satisfied. The carriage rattles homeward, carrying their exhausted, dramatic sighs. 7 years after Katerina hit her head and remembered her past life, she is almost 15. Her magic school acceptance letter is already waiting. The rule is unavoidable. Anyone with magic must enroll and live in the school dormitory. For Katerina, that means the thing she has been dreading is finally beginning. The Otome game itself has started. For 7 years, Katerina has been grinding to dodge the villainous destruction flags, practicing magic, training with the sword, improving her fake snake, and making sure Keith never feels lonely. But one part of the plan has gone horribly wrong. Her magic barely improved. Katerina has already accepted that if everything collapses, her future is finding a huge farm and working as a common farmer. She decides she needs to study agriculture harder. Her maid claps, thinking the prevention measures are perfect. Until the real problem lands, her relationships with the capture targets have changed so much that the original game's routes may already be completely broken. Katerina zeroes in on the biggest doom flag of all, Gerald Stewart, her fiancé. In the original game, Gerald had almost zero interest in her. Now he keeps showing up at her house every few days, and somehow they have become good friends. That makes it impossible to picture him as the man who would exile her, but she remembers the romance novel line that chills her to the bone, "Love changes people." Her imagination runs wild. If the original route wakes up, the person closest to her might become the one who destroys her. Katerina grabs the one loophole she thinks can save her. The forehead scar that forced Gerald to take responsibility is gone, so they can annul the engagement. Gerald just smiles and says there is still scarring. Katerina insists she check the mirror, but her maid cuts in. The scar is still there, and they are definitely not breaking off the engagement. Her last-ditch push fails. Her mother and Keith are also against the match, judging her unfit for princehood. In the end, the engagement survives. Katerina realizes Gerald has grown into the handsome, black-hearted prince from the game. He is using his fiancée as a shield and won't let go easily. The danger isn't just Gerald anymore. Keith and Alan have grown into the people Katerina remembers from the game. Mary, Sophia, and Nickel have taken on those familiar, dangerous looks too. Their faces match the original routes perfectly, but their personalities and relationships with Katerina have already drifted so far from the game that she has to set that problem aside for now. Katerina lets out a tight, trembling sigh. It is finally beginning for real. A maid rushes down the hall calling for Ojo-sama and reminding her that everyone is already gathered for her birthday party in the parlor. Katerina's formal dress rustles as she turns. Her face is set with grim, battlefield resolve. She answers, "Understood," stepping onto a war zone, not a celebration. Gerald steps into the birthday party with a dazzling smile, congratulating Katerina and telling her she looks beautiful. Katerina thanks him politely, but the air around them turns instantly icy. Every young woman among her guests is glaring like Katerina just stole the most precious thing in the room. Katerina almost wishes she could hand over her place as his fiancée right then and there. Then Gerald takes her hand and calls her name, smiling like he's about to say something he has said before, but this time he wants her to hear it clearly. Gerald's smile turns razor-sweet as he tells Katerina he has absolutely no intention of breaking their engagement. Katerina finally nods, convinced she understands now if he ever finds someone he actually likes, he should tell her right away and she will step aside immediately. No being in the way, no sword, no destruction ending. Gerald only tightens his grip and smiles harder. Her answer proves the exact opposite. She still hasn't understood him at all. Gerald only smiles and asks what he will have to do to finally make Katerina understand. Before she can even process the question, he pulls her hard against him, holding her close as she squeaks in pure panic. Katerina immediately assumes she messed up. She must have spaced out, lost her balance, and ruined the dance. She stammers an apology, but Gerald's grip doesn't loosen. Katerina realizes with dawning confusion that he isn't letting go. Katerina's mind immediately jumps to the worst possible explanation. She must have stepped on Gerald's foot earlier and hurt him so badly he can't move. Alan snickers from the side, clearly enjoying the mess. Gerald just keeps holding her close, smiling as he tells her she is still so innocent that if she keeps acting like this, someone will easily steal her away. Then he kisses her forehead and Katerina freezes, still trapped in sheer panic. Giordo grips Katerina's hand and tells her he will stop here for today, then lets her go. He lifts her hand to his lips, kisses it, and smiles like he already knows he will have the rest of her one day. Katerina just stares back, completely and utterly lost. Gerald walks away while the noble girls squeal after him. Katerina's mother is still completely baffled by whatever he was doing, though relieved his feet seem fine. Then Keith rushes in with a dark, strained look, calling for Katerina and grabbing a handkerchief. He starts wiping her forehead like he is trying to violently scrub something off. Katerina panics, but Keith forces a smile and claims a bug landed on her, so he just wiped the dirt away. Katerina buys it instantly, cheerfully deciding bugs are normal in summer. Her mother can only facepalm. Alan sweeps Katerina into the dance. For once, he doesn't tease her with his usual bite. He admits, awkwardly flushed, that she looks better than usual today. Katerina beams and thanks him properly, accepting the compliment since the servants worked all day to fix her hair and dress. Then Alan ruins the mood by loudly mentioning they even fixed her underwear. Katerina explodes at him for saying something like that at a formal party. Mary asks Nickel while they are dancing whether he has someone special at magic school. Nickel answers quietly that, frankly, he does, but she isn't at school. Mary immediately panics, wondering where he met her and blurting that it must be forbidden love. Nickel refuses to tell her where. His expression is calm but serious, because the girl he likes is someone he is not allowed to like. Mary freezes in shock as he keeps dancing with her, leaving the confession hanging like a loaded secret. Mary's brain nearly detonates. A married woman? Or maybe a man. She still has no idea which forbidden love Nickel is talking about, but she immediately switches into comfort mode. She promises she won't tell Sophia and insists everything will work out in the end. Nickel answers with nothing but a strained silence, while Mary pats him reassuringly. Afterward, Mary slips away to the veranda and exhales hard. The secret still feels dangerously heavy. Katerina escapes onto the veranda after dancing until she is worn out, with Sophia trailing behind her. Mary catches up with them there. Both girls gush birthday wishes, telling Katerina she looks beautiful tonight. Then the sweetness turns into quiet desperation. Sophia sighs that only gentlemen get to dance with Katerina, while Mary thinks if she were a man she would be able to dance with her too. Katerina brightens and tells Mary she wanted to dance with her too. Mary's eyes go wide. Katerina immediately suggests they sneak off later and dance in secret, leaving Mary completely stunned. Katerina's confidence wobbles. She admits she doesn't know how to dance the man's part because even the woman's part is hard enough for her. Mary says that is fine, but Katerina's practice is already a disaster, with the dance teacher begging her to stop stepping on his feet. Still, Katerina throws her arms out with a huge grin. She has already practiced how to dance the man's part. Katerina and Mary agree to sneak off later and dance in a corner where no one will notice. Mary is practically glowing with happiness. Katerina immediately backpedals, admitting she still can't dance that well. This makes Sophia sob that it is entirely unfair. Then Maria cuts in, fists clenched, declaring she wants to dance with Katerina too. Katerina and Mary whirl through the dance, laughing that this is so much fun. Maria and Sophia are swept into the same bright, unbridled happiness. In the middle of the music and flowers, Katerina turns 15. She thinks about all the good times she has had with the girls, but winter is approaching. The boys watch with soft smiles, and before Katerina knows it, time has already moved on. The countdown to magic school begins. Katerina is handed a necessary items list that already feels overwhelmingly long. Someone explains the real problem: she will be living at school for 2 years, so she is going to need a ridiculous, staggering amount of luggage. Katerina stares at the mountain of school prep and sighs. She may feel capable of living on her own, but as a duke's daughter, she is still required to bring 5 servants with her. Choosing which maids to take is already a massive headache. The whole noble girl life thing suddenly feels way heavier than she expected. A maid snaps her out of her spacing. Katerina jolts back into reality and forces herself to focus, insisting they have to proceed. Anne stands nearby as the packing chaos begins. Katerina thanks Anne, relieved that she'll be coming with her to magic school. Anne looks moved, saying that if she weren't coming, who else could possibly take care of Katerina? That hits Katerina like a tidal wave. She bursts into tears, sobbing because Anne was even thinking about getting married, yet still listened to Katerina's selfish request and stayed by her side. Anne just stares, completely confused by the sudden emotional explosion. Then Katerina pulls out a thick work jacket and cheerfully calls it her uniform for fieldwork. Anne's face goes dark. Anne's voice cracks with the desperate hope she's misunderstanding. "You aren't seriously planning to make a field at magic school, are you?" Katerina answers with a bright, terrifying, "Of course." She is already picturing herself as the king of farmers, hacking away at the soil in a desperate training montage. 2 whole years away from her field would make her skills collapse. Anne can only stare and ask why a duke's daughter would even want to become a farmer. Katerina points proudly and insists it is just in case. Anne can't believe Katerina is still talking about the hoe. Are you even planning on bringing it? Katerina answers with terrifying certainty. Of course, there is no guarantee the school has one. Anne begs to be spared. Katerina doubles down and proudly reveals she has already brought her favorite hoe. Anne's noble girl sensibilities break a little. What kind of duke's daughter has a favorite hoe? Winter melts away, spring arrives, and Katerina moves forward with her friends waiting beside her. Ahead stands the gate to magic school. Katerina's wish is simple, but it cuts straight to the heart of everything. As Fortune Lover begins again, she prays she can avoid destruction and live safely. Then that wish turns softer and far more dangerous. Surrounded by Maria, Sophia, Giordo, Alan, Gerald, and Nickel, Katerina's real hope blooms into something almost impossible, that she will be able to stay with everyone forever. Katerina finally arrives at magic school, the public boarding school where every 15-year-old with magic powers is trained for 2 years. Its huge grounds are packed with extravagant facilities, including magical research labs. Around her, the whispers start. Most magic users come from the aristocracy, and commoners with magic are extremely rare. This year, a commoner has enrolled. Even worse, that commoner possesses the rarest magic of all, light magic. Katerina stands there while the students quietly call her the rarest woman in the entire nation. Katerina locks on to Maria Campbell, the heroine of Fortune Lover, and feels the Otomi game truly begin. Her fist clenches hard at her side. With fierce, unshakable resolve, she vows she will not let the destruction flags become her undoing. The girls are relieved they ended up in the same dorm, but Katerina quickly learns the dorms are still split by noble rank and gender. Permission to cross over is all she needs, because Gerald apparently prepared something rare for her. She is already planning a tea and sweets visit to his dorm. Keith cuts in with a panicked, "Hold up, sis?" But Alan barrels in, panting, and demands to come along too. Giordo greets Katerina warmly, then immediately calls Keith out for showing up without an invitation. Keith explains he was only brought along by Katerina's servants in case something happened. Gerald smiles and calls Keith considerate, while Katerina nearly melts at the sight of sweets she has never seen before. Then Alan cuts in with a sharp jab that Keith is only her stepbrother and should stop meddling. Katerina blurts out, "Gerald-sama!" before apologizing for interrupting and asking if she can eat the sweets. Gerald gives Katerina the go-ahead. He made the sweets especially for her. She immediately dives in with a grateful, "Thank you so much." Gerald and Alan watch with stiff smiles as Katerina realizes they probably think she is a glutton, but the sweets are just too good to stop. Then Giordo casually mentions that he met the girl with light magic earlier, and Katerina nearly chokes on the spot. Gerald zeroes in on the rumor. "The much-talked-about Congar girl, right?" Giordo confirms it with an easy, devastating smile. He ran into her by chance while walking the school grounds. Katerina's blood turns to ice. With sweets in hand, and her face swallowed by shadow, the nightmare clicks into place. This is the exact Fortune Lover event where the heroine first meets Prince Gerald. Doom. Maria Campbell is lost in the sprawling academy grounds. Desperate, she scrambles up a tree in her uniform skirt. Then, Gerald appears. Mortified, Maria braces for ridicule, but Gerald only smiles, calls her peculiar, and offers to walk her back. Watching from the shadows, Katerina's blood runs cold. The exact Fortune Lover event is unfolding for real, right before her eyes. The nightmare route clicks into place. Gerald meets Maria, takes an interest, and the love flag is planted. Alan notes Maria is the first girl besides Katerina he's ever seen climb a tree. Keith is shocked, convinced only his Nissan would scramble up branches in a skirt. Katerina tries to shrug it off, but they point out Maria was actually embarrassed. Katerina's brain short-circuits. Her own shameless tree climbing is the new benchmark, while Gerald's love flag marches forward exactly like the game. She screams. Alan laughs, noting Katerina is very special after all. Gerald tries to admire the beautiful school grounds, but Katerina doesn't answer. She sits there trembling, trapped in a full doom spiral. Gerald will fall for the heroine, then realize his fiancée is nothing but a nuisance. Alan asks if she can hear him at all. She can't break out of it. Her knuckles turn white as her hand crushes the tablecloth. It's only been a couple of days, and Maria has already captured Gerald. Gerald calmly concludes, Katerina is terrible at listening. Alan dead-eyed agrees. Katerina drowns in Maria's heroine glow, convinced she is marching straight toward her destruction end. Keith finally cuts through the spiral with a worried, Nissan. The sun has already set while she stood completely absent. She jolts back to reality sweating. Giordo calmly reminds her they aren't at the Clay's home anymore and warns her not to pick up strange things and eat them. Alan agrees she should know better at 15. Katerina completely misreads the warning as a food poisoning lecture. A few days later, Keith casually mentions he also met the girl who uses light magic. Katerina whips around with a strangled, "No what?" Keith is confused. The danger is obvious. In Fortune Lover, Keith's first meeting with the heroine is a route flag, and he's a notorious lady killer in the game. Katarina grabs him in a panic and demands to know if he hit on her. When Keith asks what that means, Katarina explains it in the most disastrous way possible, inviting a girl to do lewd acts, leaving Keith completely shocked. Keith nearly chokes, horrified by the accidental accusation. Katarina scratches her head and sighs in relief. The Keith she knows would never try to hit on girls. She reassures herself the game's lady killer version is nothing like her stepbrother. She asks what they actually talked about. Keith scratches his cheek, embarrassed. Maria dropped her handkerchief, and he simply picked it up. Katarina freezes. Handkerchief. Keith's route flag has just snapped into place. The doom flag lands with that stupid handkerchief. In the game, Maria rejects Keith, but it only makes him more interested. When she drops it, he returns it with a smooth line, then twists the whole thing into a date demand. Katarina, sweating through the realization, asks what he actually did. Keith answers with a completely innocent, nothing special. For him, it was nothing. For Katarina, it is exactly how Keith and the heroine get acquainted. Katarina clings to the handkerchief detail like a death warrant. Keith insists he only picked it up and gave it back. No flirting, no scheme, nothing. For Katarina, that still lines up with the game route, but something feels off. He didn't use it to force Maria into a date. When she presses him, he just shrugs, saying Maria was a normal, nice girl. Katarina tries to make him say it directly. Did he fall in love with Maria's beauty? Keith nearly explodes from shock. That is absolutely not what he was thinking. Keith's stunned denial only convinces Katarina more. She takes that shocked look as proof. This surprised look, I must have nailed it. Love flag confirmed. She corners him. Just as I thought. You already fell in love with Maria, right? Keith sputters that she's completely off. Katarina is already sprinting ahead in her head, convinced Maria's charm made Keith fall for her in just a couple of days. She tells Keith not to hide it because they're siblings. Keith reaches for her, desperate to get a single word in. Katarina grabs Keith with sparkling, unhinged determination. She swears she'll never disturb him and the girl he loves. She won't get in the way of his romance. Her mind flashes to the game route. Katarina disapproved of commoner Maria, tried to break them up, and got injured by Keith for interfering. But that's only in the game. In this life, Katarina shakes Keith by the shoulders and declares the exact opposite. She will definitely support his love for Maria and will absolutely not interfere. Keith is left completely stunned. Katarina keeps rattling him and shouting his name until a maid has to physically hold her back, warning that Keith has reached his limit. Katarina finally realizes she's been shaking him right after breakfast. She panics into apologies. Keith, pale and miserable, mutters that he would reach his limit too. Katarina tries to get Keith to skip class and rest in the infirmary. He insists he's not sick. His body is fine. He staggers off anyway, muttering that the real problem is his spirit. He leaves Katarina and the maid staring after him in total confusion. By nightfall, the academy is quiet. Katarina grips her quill over a memo marked anti-destruction strategies, jaw set. Maria's charm is too powerful. She cannot afford even a second of carelessness. She needs a perfect strategy. By nightfall, that strategy turns into an emergency broadcast from inside her own brain. The destruction end avoidance meeting is called. Katarina demands opinions from every version of herself gathered around the table. Katarina Klez is called to the floor, answering with a sharp yes. She launches into the crisis briefing. Maria is the main problem, a heroine whose charm has surpassed every prediction. The meeting agrees. Maria has already piqued Gerald's interest and charmed Keith too. One Katarina argues that Gerald, who usually cares about almost nothing, looked fascinated by her. The cooler Katarina cuts that down hard. They still don't know whether Maria has actually made Gerald fall for her. A tiny skeptic mutters, "Is that really so?" Katarina tries to cool the panic. Yes, the Gerald in the game was like that, but the real Gerald has 100 interests. He gives her detailed advice about her vegetable field, recommends good seeds, and keeps bringing her sweets from famous bakeries. The tiny meeting has to admit that's true. Then the argument twists into something worse. Even if Gerald cares about lots of things, this might be the first time he's shown interest in a specific person. He usually only talks about Katarina. Nobody's ever heard him talk about a girl he likes before. Katarina gasps as the realization hits, flashing to Gerald smiling dreamily and chanting her name. The panic hits a worse conclusion. Maria is the first girl Gerald has ever shown any interest in, which means it's only a matter of time before he falls for her. The inner meeting can only agree. Maria-san really is amazing. At this rate, Alan and Nicole are going to fall for her too. Then the evidence piles up. Maria is just like the game heroine, brilliant at academics, naturally gifted with magic, and extremely beautiful. But one tiny doubt cuts through the whole crisis meeting. But is that really true? Katerina slams the table and refuses to let the crisis spiral that far. Even if Maria is terrifying, Mary and Sophia won't lose to her. They're the rival heroines for Alan and Nicole's routes. Smart, magically gifted, and beautiful enough to stand against Maria's looks. There's no way they'll let her win easily. The other Katerinas instantly agree. Mary and Sophia are too charming to go down without a fight. Then the meeting lands on the one person who absolutely would lose to Maria, Katerina herself, who is not that smart and bad at magic. The room settles into dark, miserable laughter, because that conclusion somehow makes everyone feel better. The inner Katerinas slam the table in total panic. If Katerina loses to Maria, it's a disaster. The verdict is brutal and obvious. Maria gets the happy ending, and Katerina gets the destruction end. The whole meeting freezes, then screams the truth together. If Katerina loses, they're doomed. The inner Katerinas spiral into total meltdown. Maria is too strong, losing would be catastrophic, and nobody knows what to do. One calmer Katerina forces a pause, insisting they need to think this through properly. Then the brutal question lands. Can a villainess like Katerina, weak at magic and academics, possibly beat a smart, beautiful heroine with powerful magic? Silence. Nobody has an answer. So the meeting grabs the only weapon Katerina truly trusts, agriculture. Farming is the accumulation of experience. If Katerina can't win with brains, beauty, or magic, she'll build a vegetable field and grind her way to victory. Katerina's inner meeting locks onto the one future it can survive, exile. If they're banished, they'll live splendidly as farmers, so fieldwork cannot be neglected while they're still at school. The agreement is unanimous. The strategy mutates into emergency self-defense, more toy snake practice to counter Gerald if he attacks, plus sword training no matter how miserable they are. Then Katerina grips the alarm clock with terrifying resolve and declares that, from tomorrow on, they will not stop. Katerina's inner council votes on the only strategy it can agree on. Ask the school for permission to make a field, keep practicing with the toy snake, and continue sword training no matter what. Everyone answers with desperate agreement, even though the whole emergency meeting admits it didn't come up with anything new. The meeting wraps with a ridiculous TV-style sign-off for Katerina Clays, making the panic feel even more pointless. After that, heavy thuds draw the maid's attention. She calls for Ojo-sama, then asks in alarm if this is a flower garden. Katerina has somehow gotten school permission by calling the whole thing a flower garden. Flower gardening is a perfectly acceptable aristocratic hobby. Anne gives her a suspicious glance, but Katerina proudly insists that since she and Keith both objected to a vegetable field, she chose a flower garden instead. Anne immediately points out that the seedlings lined up nearby do not look like flowers to her. Katerina snaps back. "What on earth are you saying, Anne?" Then Katerina reveals the loophole. Those are cucumber flowers, and the eggplant flowers are already blooming. They are all vegetables in the end, sure, but they properly grow flowers first. Katerina beams and gives a thumbs up, thrilled that she has found a way to keep farming. Anne is not buying Katerina's flower garden excuse, even as Katerina begs. Katerina sparkles up and hits the real weak point. They've already ordered all the seedlings, so surely it's fine. Anne's anger drains into helpless surrender. "Oh no! All right! Katerina immediately cheers her on like Anne is being difficult, already thinking, next up is persuading Keith. Anne gives in on one condition. Katerina has to make sure nobody else finds out this is actually a vegetable field. But as Katerina moves on, Anne stares after her, troubled. She has a sharp memory of seeing that hoe and those clothes before. Katerina's farming stash isn't gone after all. She proudly shows off the exact tools she always uses back home. Anne realizes they were supposed to have been left behind at the mansion, but Katerina smugly explains that she packed them with the rest of her luggage anyway, and everyone else just tried to remove them and abandon them. So she had Gardener Tom deliver the whole set straight to school. Anne is horrified that Tom got dragged into this. Katerina just beams and heads back to work while Anne follows into the bushes, calling her name and wondering where she's gone. Maria and the others finally track Katerina down, bursting in with bright smiles and a tea invitation. They find her frozen in farmer clothes, hoe in hand, in the middle of her so-called flower garden. Alan is stunned, speechless, then cracks. Even after coming all the way here, she's still going at it. The secrecy collapses into chatter and laughter, but Katerina just beams through the dirt and says hoeing is strangely relaxing. When someone compliments how good the farm clothes look on her, she happily thanks them like this disaster is going perfectly. Sophia walks through the academy where the rules are simple and brutal. The top students every year must become members of the student council. Her footsteps echo down the hall as she reminds herself that she isn't a top student, so she doesn't qualify. She doesn't really mind spending time alone. After all her good friends and Maria became members just like they did in the game. But Sophia has a loophole. Even though she isn't a student council member, she somehow got special permission to visit. She reaches the student council room, knocks, calls out hello, and smiles at the sign. Now she can drop in on her friends whenever she likes. Nickel opens the door with a bright, "Welcome, Katerina-san." And Katerina answers with a grateful, "Thank you very much." The second she steps inside, she clocks the student council president and starts wondering if the council is chosen by looks instead of grades. Nickel, the vice president, calmly pulls her in and explains the real reason the room is so empty. It used to have 7 members, but now he and the president are the only ones left. Everyone else stopped showing up after Nickel's fan club chaos, with girls literally fighting over him. The president survived because he's the only one who can handle Nickel, so in the end, only those 2 remained. Maria keeps dropping by the student council, and Nickel keeps treating her like she belongs. He pours tea, smiles, and tells her not to apologize. She notices the council is short-handed and that the first years don't fall for Nickel's charm, but his kindness makes her feel at ease. By the end, Maria's already comfortable there. She's determined to get closer to the members who weren't her friends before, especially Katerina Claes. Maria Campbell offers a plate of sweets with a gentle smile, inviting Katerina to taste some. Katerina accepts with a flustered, "Ah, thank you," but her attention stays locked on Maria as she murmurs, "Campbell-san." The mood shifts under that smile. Maria is the ultimate destruction flag, and Katerina's escape route suddenly feels much narrower. Katerina's old fear of Maria Campbell still has roots. Until now, she only knew her as the heroine of Fortune Lover, the girl tied to her destruction route. But after spending more time around her in the student council room, Katerina starts seeing the real Maria in person. The discovery throws her completely off balance. Maria Chen isn't a threat in the way she imagined. She's genuinely kind, warm, and wonderful. Katerina is already smiling at her like she's found a treasure instead of a doom flag. Maria is completely won over by Katerina. Hardworking, considerate, humble, and honestly charming. Katerina bites into a gifted cookie and almost breaks under the guilt, wondering why the Katerina from the game ever bullied someone this nice. Maria explains the sweets were a gift from students because admired noble student council members get plenty of luxurious presents. Katerina's eyes light up when she remembers that Maria's hobby in the game was making sweets for the council. Treats she always wanted to try. She immediately asks Maria to make some for her. Maria freezes in shock. Katerina's request lands like a threat. Maria freezes, and Katerina suddenly realizes it sounds like she's bullying Maria into making sweets. She panics and insists she isn't trying to force her, but Maria's real concern cuts deeper. How does Katerina know making sweets is her hobby? Katerina realizes Maria is embarrassed because, in the game, she quietly borrowed a corner of the school cafeteria kitchen and made small batches just for herself. Katerina tries to answer, sweating, but the truth is impossible to say out loud. She knows because she saw it in the game. Katerina nearly chokes on the truth, but Maria buys the excuse. Katerina must have heard about it from the cafeteria staff. Maria relaxes and admits she's been borrowing the cafeteria kitchen to make small batches of sweets for herself. But there's a catch. Maria is still too ashamed to show anyone. Surrounded by fancy sweets from luxury stores and famous chefs, she thinks her homemade treats aren't good enough. Katerina gets it immediately, and that's exactly why she pushes back. She may usually eat high-class sweets, but she loves homemade ones too. Katerina Claes immediately answers Maria Campbell's question with a bright, honest "of course," and launches into the excuse she's using to explain how she knows about homemade sweets. One of the maids back home used to make them, and she often shared what she baked. Then Katerina gets carried away for real. Fancy sweets from famous chefs are beautiful and delicious, sure, but the maid's simple homemade ones were amazing too, and she's been craving that taste ever since coming to school. So Katerina smiles, softens her voice, and asks Maria to share some if it isn't too much trouble. She makes it clear she isn't trying to force anything, promises to pay for the supplies and effort, and begs Maria not to be scared of her. Maria panics and refuses to take Katerina's money, insisting she's only using leftover ingredients from the school kitchen anyway. She's still insecure, worrying that her amateur baking isn't good enough for Katerina Claes, but she promises to make some and bring it next time. Katerina practically sparkles with joy. She walks home humming, cheeks flushed and heart full, giddy that she actually spoke to Maria yesterday. Katerina is practically glowing as she heads home, humming because she's finally going to get Maria's homemade sweets. Then her stomach betrays her with a savage rumble. She forgot her afternoon homework, had Keith help her redo it over lunch break, and didn't get to eat anything. She tries to stay sensible, reminding herself she'll need Anne to prepare food before she starts working in the field, but then a delicious scent drifts through the air. Katerina stops dead, sniffs, and her eyes light up. That smell is way too good. She charges toward it like prey has been spotted. Katerina follows the smell straight to Maria and the other girls, calling out, "Maria-chan!" when she spots the wrapped box. Maria greets her with a bright Clase Samae, and Katerina's eyes go wide. Those have to be the sweets she asked for. She waves and calls, "Oi, Campbell! Son! practically glowing with relief that Maria already made them, until a sharp slap cuts her off and someone shouts, "No!" Maria is cornered by the other girls, and one of them spits that light magic doesn't make her special. Then she slams her heel down on Maria's wrap box of homemade sweets, flattening it with a hard thump. The bully grinds her heel into Maria's wrapped sweets, sneering that poor-looking homemade treats from a commoner have no place near the student council. She lifts her foot from the crushed box and spits that Maria is nothing but a disgrace. Katerina's eyes snap wide. Without thinking, she lunges forward and screams, "Stop it!" The girls' taunts die the second Katerina cuts in. Maria stammers from behind her. Katerina Kles Sama. Katerina throws herself between Maria and the bullies, arms spread like a wall, then snaps at them with pure fury. "Just what do you think you're doing?" Katerina's rage snaps into focus. Maria went out of her way to make those sweets just for her, and these girls tried to destroy them. Her glare turns razor sharp. This is absolutely unforgivable. The bullies freeze and shudder under the force of it, suddenly realizing they've crossed the wrong person. The bullies fold instantly under Katerina's glare. They shriek, "We're terribly sorry," and sprint away in a panic, leaving Katerina smug that her villainous face worked perfectly. Once they're gone, she exhales with relief, hands on her hips. Then she crouches beside the crushed box while Maria stands frozen behind her, barely able to whisper, "Kles Sama?" Katerina picks up the fallen sweets and checks one carefully. Thankfully, they only hit the grass and didn't get dirty. They're still fluffy. They still smell amazing. Then, completely without thinking, Katerina takes a bite. Her whole face lights up. It's so good! The flavor is mild, mellow, and perfectly sweet. She's blown away. Maria watches in stunned silence as Katerina starts grabbing more, tears in her eyes, declaring that she can't get enough. Katerina finishes every last sweet and sits there stuffed, only realizing too late that she ate the whole batch. Maria just stares as the horror sinks in. Those treats were probably meant for the student council too, not just for her. Katerina apologizes, mortified, while Maria tries to brush it off. Maria Campbell tries to reassure Katerina Kles that the sweets were already spoiled from falling on the grass. Katerina realizes that's what Maria meant. She ate them even though they weren't meant for her, and then proudly claims the 3-second rule makes it fine since she picked them up right away. Maria is stunned, but Katerina keeps gushing that Maria is a true sweets-making genius, honestly better than anything a professional could make. Maria blushes and thanks Katerina, and Katerina, cheeks stuffed with sweets, nearly melts at how cute she is. Her heart goes, "Ba-dump." Then Alan finds Maria Campbell and calls out, "Campbell-san, so here's where you were." He says the meeting already started and he was wondering where she went, but he freezes when he realizes Katerina is there too. Alan catches Katerina off guard with, "What are you doing here, Katerina?" And Maria can only stammer, well... Katerina's anger doesn't cool. She heads out to the field, hefts a bag of premium vegetable fertilizer, and mutters that she can't believe Maria was being harassed like that. Katerina storms toward the field with a bag of fertilizer, still boiling over Maria's treatment. Maria has everything to be envied. She's a commoner with rare light magic, great grades, beauty, a wonderful personality, and now a seat on the admired student council. Proud nobles are jealous, sure, but Katerina thinks there is absolutely no excuse for destroying the sweets Maria worked so hard to make. That rage bursts out of her. They're terrible people. They're acting awful, just like Katerina from the game. So frustrating. Then she suddenly stops cold. Wait a minute. Katerina suddenly realizes the girls just replayed a game scenario. Maria had made homemade sweets for everyone and was walking to the student council room when the villainess cut her off. Gerald swooped in to rescue Maria, fought off the henchman, and then a hand reached for a stone. The memory hits hard. The bullying today was a perfect copy of that old event. Katerina's memory snaps into focus. Gerald biting into Maria's homemade sweet, calling it delicious, then giving the heroine that rare, genuine smile. That was the Gerald route event. The exact moment Maria was supposed to fall for him. Still hauling vegetable fertilizer, Katerina suddenly feels a wave of weird relief. The bullies, the crushed sweets, Gerald showing up, it all lines up. For a second, she's almost refreshed. Then the realization turns cold. Wait a minute, if today really was Gerald's route event, wouldn't that mean she just stole his romantic moment? Catastrophe. Katerina's brain short-circuits. She just murdered Gerald's perfect romantic scenario, exactly as she did with Alan. The script was flawless. Gerald steps in, scares off the bullies, and eats one of Maria's fallen sweets to earn her rare, genuine smile. The exact trigger that sparks the heroine's love. Instead, Katerina's terrifying glare chased the bullies away first. Worse, she devoured every single sweet before Gerald could even touch one. The perfect Gerald and Maria route is obliterated. Maria and Mary can only laugh as Katerina clutches the empty box, absolutely horrified that she just stole a pivotal romantic event from her childhood friend. But then, a colder, sharper thought cuts through the panic. Wait, If that sheer panic instantly flips into wild, breathless relief. If Gerald and Maria end up together, then Katerina's destruction route transforms into a happy ending. So actually, I did a good thing, she declares. She hurls the heavy fertilizer bag aside and throws her arms wide open beneath the open sky, still tightly clutching the empty sweet box. By devouring those sweets and chasing off the bullies, she just accidentally smashed the road to another doom flag. Alright, I'll ride this momentum and keep trying my best. For one shining, reckless second, Katerina truly believes she has successfully dodged her doom.